Hello, hi Neil. Happy
Hi,
New Week.
Precious.
It's the
Happy
end
New
of the
Week.
week, not
Happy
Happy New Week
Friday.
yet.
Yeah.
Happy Friday. Yeah. So it's another episode of TED Developer Podcast. This is our second episode for the year, and I welcome you all to this week. We have some interesting stories.
Yeah.
Couple
Lot
of
of
them.
interesting. Yeah, a lot of interesting.
Yeah,
Lots of deep dives we're gonna do this time.
yeah,
We're gonna
yeah. A
try
lot of
different
detail.
format a little bit. Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah. All
So you
right.
want
So
to get
you want to
started?
kick us off?
You want to start? Why don't you start?
Oh, okay. So I think the first story I have here is from Anthropic. So Anthropic released a paper, sort of like we call it instrumentation has flipped automation, right? So they launched this, they released this economic index based on the data that they have from Claude, and then for the first time, um, professional sessions are now iterative loops, which means instead of having people just give AI one prompt, we now have people now working side by side with AI according to what they have and how people are using their platforms, right? And then it's such a very interesting paper because you could see how in different countries and then how they are performing in different countries, different regions, and all those things. Now, one of the interesting things that people saw that we saw from this paper, I saw from this paper, is that data now shows a decline in zero shoot requests. So, what do we mean by zero shoots? People, instead of saying, "Oh, write this function for me," or "Oh, AI do this for me," people there's now a spike in stateful session. So this is where people provide context window, and then they have like shared workspace, and there's iterative refinement where, oh, there is a do this for me, for example, help me write this paper. But then before you start, ask me questions. Yeah, ask some questions, they come back and they say, oh, how can you do this? So this paper just simply says that, oh, now we now have more human in the loop workflows.
He was complaining about having a bad internet connectivity, but we lost him. That's kind of crazy. Um, uh, right, maybe I should. This is sort of new, unscripted. The beauty of doing live podcast, huh? Let me jump into my story here, and hopefully by then he'll come back. Um, so there has been some interesting, obviously, lots of development going on about running coding agents for a long time, kind of having it's kind of long running autonomous agents sort of working on a complex problems and do that. And I read those, and we all read those articles in the past and say, yeah, okay, yeah, we're gonna send bug, I'm gonna go to bed, and it's gonna finish the world. But I saw a really good example of what could be possible. Is the recently this came out from Cursor. So Cursor guys sort of ran hundreds of autonomous AI agents on a long-running software projects. Okay, and this is sort of agents running for sort of 3 weeks. And one of the project that I sort of worked on is building a web browser from scratch. Okay, so I don't know about you guys. I feel like building web browser is probably from scratch, not taking existing Chromium rendering engine or something, just building wrapper on that. This is something from just completely rendering engine, everything from scratch. Is It's a bit complicated software. It's just like if a developer knows how to build a web browser, the developer is pretty kick-ass, right? So they essentially took that challenge, which I thought was a really good way to sort of test the limits. And within sort of 3 weeks, they were able to build sort of working version of the web browser that sort of starts to render basic web pages, which is sort of mind-boggling to think about that an agent's on its own working and building something like that. So this agents ran for 3 weeks. A fleet of agents built a working web browser from scratch. Produced 1 million lines of code across 1,000 files, passing CI build to render basic web pages. This is just, I feel like this sets a bar of what's truly possible with some of these agents. Um, So that's sort of great, interesting paper on this. Simon did, and they have some research published on Cursor of how they went about it. So that's a great sort of story to look into. The reason that's sort of important is, and we're going to talk about this more down the line too, is that um, how sort of code is not asset anymore, right? I mean, yeah, as long as you can drive these agents and provide them a very clear specification, and more importantly, have a way to verify them, then these agents can work together independently for even 3 weeks and can even build a web browser from scratch. It's just mind-boggling. So they did learn a couple of things in terms of while building this. I mean, obviously, when they started with this is a great paper. I highly recommend you guys to read about this. How they have how they build this architecture. When they started building the self-organizing agents, obviously they realized there was lots of lock contention, deadlocks, like when they're coordination is a challenge when you work with multiple agents. So they pivoted to hierarchical system, which sort of we kind of know now. In retrospect, that's a really good way to think about it, because Claude sort of does that too, right? You have a planner agent that breaks down the code base and spawns multiple sub-planner, and the worker agent that focused on completing them. And there is always this judge agent that comes at the end, look at the work almost like a QA to review whether the work has been done and provide feedback. So they sort of use that process to build a web browser from scratch. It's just mind-boggling to think like that. Precious, you're back. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you. So here's a
Wow.
link to that story. So I just switched to that story while you dropped.
Oh,
Uh,
oh,
all right, so
yeah. I didn't even know
yeah,
I
so
was talking. I didn't even know I was off.
no, I figured I was not sure what to do too. But anyway, I talked about the Cursor published a paper recently. They built a web browser from
Okay.
scratch. It's not using Chromium or anything, something
Oh,
completely from scratch, which is just crazy, wild to think. Anyway, you want to go back to your story?
oh yeah. So I don't know where I stopped, but then the link is in the comments, or the
So
story
you
basically, like as
mentioned
I was
last thing you
saying.
mentioned that the paper summarizes that one-shot prompting is not the thing anymore. Everybody is doing a sort of a back and forth multi-turn prompting that's becoming normal.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
big.
yeah. There's now
Yeah,
more human in the loop, and then yeah.
yeah.
All right.
I
So
sometimes this is crazy though. I sometimes wonder whether they have done purposely. Maybe what about this conspiracy theory? Maybe models are really really smart, but they are not ready to expose them. They want us to use more tokens so that they can make more money.
maybe, maybe. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being purposely dumb so that I can use more.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
there is a
All right.
dial that making this model dumb a little bit so that
Yeah.
they can make more money.
So that they can make more money. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So also, according to the listing, we were able to see countries that were leading 25% in usage for Claude, and then Israel, Singapore, and United States, they are topping the list. And then on the ones that are countries that are using it less, we can see countries like mine, Nigeria, which is on 0.22%,
Why is
zero,
that?
just zero,
Why Nigeria is so
0.76.
behind?
I mean, so because we have most people here use ChatGPT, and then Claude is mostly for developers and then like technical people, right? So developers here who have adopted AI, they still try to use ChatGPT because AI is right? So I don't think Claude has like PR or a lot of PR or cloud around. So most African countries, I think the African country with the highest usage is also still in the bottom 25%, and that is South Africa at 0.4%.
Your words are breaking up a little bit, but yeah. So ChatGPT is more popular. Claude is considered more
Yeah,
developer.
more technical.
I
Yeah,
guess
more
that's one of the
developed.
reason why they released Claude Cowork, just to sort of
Break that
break that
barrier. Yeah,
barrier. Yeah, Claude
yeah,
Code
yeah.
probably was, in hindsight, probably not good naming. because when people hear Claude, oh, this is just for, but you can use Claude for anything you want.
Yeah, if you also look at the job part of the document, you will also see that you could also see the same thing that we are saying. So this is software developers, 7% usage. This is computer programmer percent usage. This is data warehousing, which is also almost technical. We have 3.85% usage. This is web developers, software developers, and system software. Then tutors. So almost the top top 10 purpose or jobs that use Claude are mostly like technical people, technical folks. This is bioinformatics. It's until you keep coming down, you start seeing poets, you start seeing English people, biological sciences, technical writers, and all these other things coming down here.
All right, good,
So yeah,
good. Yeah, that's
yeah,
interesting. All right, so the next one I have is obviously also there's lots of Claude stories because obviously they're doing lots of interesting stuff in here. So it's not intentional. It's just the way we curate these stories is that we look at interesting stuff to talk about. Okay. So this has been a very favorite topic of ours in the podcast throughout last year. Is now that AI is doing all this sort of heavy lifting and writing code, how do you even hire software engineers? I posed these questions in the past also. How are company interviewing this? I mean, you cannot, please don't tell me you're sending a coding exercise, take home exercises and judging based on that, right? I mean, that's not, I mean, yeah, right. I mean, so AI is doing lots of stuff in here. Maybe they can do this. And reason also take home exercise is becoming really, really interesting because we talked about this in a previous podcast. Is Anthropic sort of uses their Claude Opus also. So they whatever take home exercise Anthropic used to give for their interviews, for software engineering interviews, they give the same exercises to Claude also to complete. And every time Claude outperformed human developer, any engineer. Okay, they tried various methods of time constraint, this constraints, complexity of code. Every time Claude has outperformed any human engineer they have interviewed. Right. And so that clearly sets sort of way that like, how do you even do that anymore then? So so what some of the folks are doing, and I saw one story also where a developer a company said during the interview, sort of live interview, hey, you can use AI to implement your solution, and developer sort of refused to use AI and he didn't get hired. So we're sort of in the transition in here where we sort of seeing lots of companies are sort of using AI during the interview and seeing how developers sort of navigate AI tools, how they are thinking. But nonetheless, I mean, since most of our technical interviews used to be based on how someone implements writes a code, and now the code is most likely going to be written by AI, we all have to sort of change. So what Anthropic guys are doing here is sort of looking into more like problem-solving skills. So they came up with sort of new tools. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this, but this sort of give you what they call is a Zactronic style logic puzzles. So they will simulate, they will give you a completely new programming language with limited instruction set, maybe a different type of CPU or microprocessor, and you have to write code for that. So it's not very, hey, write code in Java or .NET or whatever, what have you. So this is completely new environment, new instruction set, new CPUs, and see how we can solve, how can you sort of implement that solution in that constrained environment. So that sort of is there a new interviewing technique. What do you think about that, Precious?
Well, I think it's really cool. I mean, in recent days, I've seen like new, totally different job roles come up,
Yeah.
and people are now hiring like AI creative directors, AI videographer, and these people basically just sit down, use any of these AI video generating tools, just sit down to do all these things. So it's also interesting to see that the way we interview, especially for developers, is going to change because if you look at the topic, code was never the word again. I can't even remember. Code
Yeah.
was
So
never
it's
the
yeah. So can you code the whole idea that the interview was to judge can this person code is not relevant anymore. It's not can
yes.
you
It's
code
not, it's not
anymore. It's
relevant
about
anymore. Yeah,
yeah.
it's about
It's about
can
can you
you
think
you
and can you
yeah
go
can you
beyond the
think
model.
yeah yeah yeah. And
Can
you
you go
remember how
beyond the
we always
model?
talk about on this
Yeah,
podcast where we say that, oh, engineering, especially software engineering, is going to evolve into real engineering, And we made
yeah,
example where, like a civil engineer in a construction site, you sit down in your office, you draw the sketch,
yeah,
make sure that everything is in place, then you give the technicians for them to what to implement,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that sort of thing is going to start happening in software engineering, where the engineer is going to sit down, do the thinking, do the everything on the table, and then give AI for AI to implement. So it's going to be more
Yeah,
of
so yeah,
how
so
are you
very
going to solve this problem more than writing code.
yeah. So some folks might and push back on this. I mean, now you're testing humans on a very constrained logical puzzles, which might not be very relevant to what they do day to day. But I mean, I'm not saying whether this is right and wrong, but this is what some of these companies are getting into. Funny antidote here. When back in days when I was applying for my first Scala job, okay, so my
Mm.
first take-home exercise was not, even though I was applying for a Scala job, my take-home exercise was not in Scala. I mean, he was ahead of his time, the lead engineer there. He was awesome, dude. So he gave me an exercise on an unknown programming language, and my task was to build a web server.
Oh,
The reason I remember this is because I knew that there was, well, this is before LLM, right? So our solution was Stack Overflow. There was no and resources in Stack Overflow on this language because it's a completely unused, unknown programming language. So that's sort of essentially what they're trying to get at. So you're in a very constrained environment. Back in the day, I didn't have Stack Overflow, but imagine you don't have Claude to help you. How you navigate and solve those exercises is what some of the companies are going after.
wow. That's interesting though. And then it's
Yeah,
an interesting. I think I like it though. I think I like it. The real question that everybody still remains: is it still important to learn how to code in 2025? So should I still go spend 12 hours learning how to code in JavaScript or in Python? Are those things still needed? Should I still go learn Python? Should I still go learn JavaScript, go um, Node.js and all those things? Are they still important? So I don't think anyone has an answer to that. I don't know if you want to say anything on that before we move to the next story. So
I mean, I don't know how it will make me feel like building something. Then you're just doing pure vibe coding,
okay.
right? I mean, but I think having a concept of how sort of software essentially work and how you deploy things will help you navigate this. So not necessarily, I think in the process you can learn to code Python, Haskell, Scala, whatever you want to, but you have to have the basics sort of down.
Mm.
Uh, you have to, otherwise a non-technical person vibe coding a solution. I mean, what's the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference? Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, okay, the next story I have here is a story from Meta. So, Meta dropped Shape R. So, this Shape R is a new model that generates professional grade 3D meshes from casual smartphone videos. So, it solves the wobbly video problem that usually breaks photogrammetry. So, what this does is that instead of relying on pure pixel data, right? So this shape R fuses visual data with accelerometer and some other data, right, from your phone to establish a rock solid 3D coordinate system. So when you point your phone camera on, let's say, a particular side of your house, right, give you it's going to give you like a 3D sketch of the whole area. You know, the way for especially for engineers or architects that want to draw a picture of like of an area, right? Just with your phone, you can be able to do this thing using this model. So it's a model. It's on GitHub. I saw their repo. It's open source, so you can actually download it. And it's interesting because I'm waiting to see what developers are going to build with these things. Are they going to is it only going to be used for architect? Are we going to see new ideas that are going to be built on top of this thing? So this particular shape R uses transformer architecture to smooth out the noise, and then in the generation process, creating clean topology rather than messy points, cloud typical of NERF method. For those that are into this, I think you know what we are talking about here. So instead of having noise in the image that you have, they use these rectified flow transformers to make it smooth, and then you have like proper 3D access pipeline, come out for you from just the camera of your mobile phone. Right. So I'm going to drop the link to the research
So
paper in the chat.
Meta is doing lots of interesting stuff on this 3D modeling, spatial computing stuff. Is it? I feel like this is mainly because of their because they
Is it
I,
Oculus?
glasses,
Well,
meta glasses,
Meta
meta
glasses. Yeah,
glasses.
Meta glasses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they're heavily sort of doubling down on that.
I mean,
I was thinking of getting meta glasses this Christmas, but I will wait for the next version. I'll probably get it this year.
oh,
Uh,
okay.
why
Right.
not?
So I mean, for we have a lot of meta glasses here in Nigeria right now, and I mean, people look at my glasses and they're asking me, "Oh, is it meta glasses because of where they have?"
Your looks very similar to meta glasses.
Yeah, it looks very similar to meta glasses, right? So when I traveled, police will stop me and they're like, "Oh, are you on camera?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not." So and it helps a lot here because
So
of
how
police
they
harassment.
use meta glasses when there is such an internet connectivity issues in Nigeria? It's just interesting.
I mean, yeah,
It connects to your phone, right?
yeah, it connects to your phone. It connects to your phone, right? Yeah. So when you are, some areas have like good, it's not always like this, right? I've not had it
Yeah,
this bad in months,
yeah,
almost a
yeah,
year, right? So it's not always bad.
yeah.
So the days when it's good, you are fully connected and then stuffs are going on.
I see. Interesting. All right, I have one more Claude story. I think this is probably going to be it. I don't know. No promises, but Claude released something called Claude Constitution. Okay, now this made lots of buzz around the cycle on Twitter and whatnot. I think it's a fascinating document. I mean, that's why I feel like Anthropic guys got their shit together, man. They know what they're doing. So it's great to see the focus. And so anyway, the constitution is sort of the clause constitution. That means that the thing that guides the model. And this fundamentally how drives their training everything. So Claude itself. So there are a couple of very, very interesting aspects how we do that. So one way to think about this is the constitution is sort of guiding principle for the model from the get-go, from the level one training, right? So when you operate in Claude always refers constitution, and constitution sort of defines the behavior, overall behavior, non-negotiables. Like if you ask Claude to do something that Claude is not supposed to do, how should Claude respond to that? It also focuses on things like, how users try to hack models, right? To give it things. Especially a very important discussion because recently there was another sort of suicide case around ChatGPT, right? It counts to around 5 to 6 people, sort of claiming that ChatGPT is kind of responsible or kind of encouraged maybe in some scenarios. We talked about this, right? So people build emotional attachment with this model. So it becomes very, very important how models are designed, what guidelines it follows so that it can stay within their boundary. So constitution is that sort of provides a broad safety ethics, how to say no. Claude usually will not say, Claude usually don't just say, I can't help you. It also gives you a reason why it will not help you in case of refusal. So this is a fascinating thing to read if you're into sort of AI ethics and how the model should behave. One interesting thing that there are a couple of interesting things I'd like to mention here. There were some interesting data points in here. Claude won't lie. So even what lies, like nice gift and stuff. So you cannot incentivize this model. Oh, I like you, I love you, can you do this for me? You cannot do that kind of interactions. Even though people try, it will sort of stay within their boundary. The thing that I thought was interesting that when they train the model, Claude itself thinks it's a character. We are going to be a bit of sci-fi here, but Claude doesn't think itself as a chatbot though. It has a character, it has a stable identity, and it has this So this gives a feel of that how we should be thinking about AGI coming in, right? So this AI models have a character. It has curiosity built in. It knows how to care for human. It has intellectual honesty. So you know how we prompt in typical LLM saying you're a chatbot, you should do that. But instead of Claude training, they have defined a sort of character and identity for this model. So all this sort of described in the Constitution. It's a definitely good read if you guys are interested in that stuff.
It's really creepy hearing that.
Yeah, it has
AI
an
agents have,
identity. It has a feeling. It gives that feeling. Sometimes if it gets stressed, the Constitution talks about how you should be handling that situation. Um, uh,
when the agent
yeah,
gets stressed, not when I get
when the
stressed.
model gets when the no, not you, when itself gets stressed, Claude.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, you know how time we get frustrated. I sometimes say nasty things to the model, right?
Yeah.
So imagine like model getting all this sort of abuses and how you should be dealing with that. I mean, lots of people are like that, right? You're stupid, dumb, do this. How you
Yeah.
should be handling those situations, and
Wow.
fear and all that stuff. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, though. Really fascinating. All right. So the next story I have here is from GitLab, right? So um, GitLab Duo is now generally available. So it's an agentic platform where you can deploy autonomous agent that live inside your CI/CD platform and issue tracker to perform multi-task, multi-step tasks for you, right? So it doesn't wait for you to type. It's like proper agent. It runs asynchronous. It has like a planner agent that break down your issues and then sort of like check for just help you plan. The way we always talk about on this podcast. Do your initial planning for you. It has like a security analyst agent that can triage and then give you like vulnerability reports. And then another interesting thing is that it's also context aware, right? So it reads the entire project, issues, merge requests, code, which allows which allows the planner agent, which is also inside this GitLab Duo, to plan properly for you. So it uses like everything, all the context, down to issues, every single thing, for you to be able to do this thing for you, right? So I guess this also ties back to the main story, which is that writing code is no longer a bottleneck, right? So everybody can write code. So using tools like this, it also still means that codes code is not really the issue. People now find other simpler ways to write code. And then this also lives inside the pipeline. So let's even imagine I build this thing using Cloud Code or anti-gravity, right? And then I move it to GitLab. Automatically, this agent kicks in, checks for vulnerability for me, and then also like do the other things for me because it has like multiple agents that do multiple things inside their GitLab Duo, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Inside is like GitLab Duo agent, right? So, and then I think it's an interesting one. I've not heard anything from GitLab. I even Git buckets. I know we've heard of GitHub.
I remember last year at the beginning, Mark, my advisor, sort of shared one of their sort of internal memo how GitLab is thinking through this. I think one of the things they fundamentally sort of landing on, which is um, not code, because code going to get easier and easier to build, but managing the deployment and processes is where the complexity is still around. So that's
Yeah,
where they're going to be heavily focusing on, which sounds like that's what they're doing right now, building
yeah,
lots of tools around the operations and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, we there are a couple of smaller stories. Then we can dive into main story in here, which tie backs to. So don't go anywhere. Why code is not an asset anymore? I think is a good point to consider, and why vendors like GitLab and others sort of moving in. So there is a let's riff on OpenAI because everybody's doing it. Why shouldn't we? So OpenAI wants to do ads. Have you seen the story? It's a light story a little bit. So they're coming up with a plan with starting ads, which reminds me back in day, Sam Altman says something like this, that if you can figure out any business model for us, we will default to ads. So I guess they are into that point where they want to introduce ads because obviously the data shows that they're losing lots of money in here. Um,
I,
so
I
interesting.
agree with you. I agree with you because the last story, I think I have just one more story, and the last story I
Yeah.
have here says that GitHub, OpenAI, ChatGPT Go has been decentralized, so which means it has been rolled out globally, and then this is just $8 a month plan, and then you can use ChatGPT. So initially, it was rolled out for countries like Nigeria, I think some parts of India, sort of like
Mm.
countries that were considered poor and not being able to afford the $20 plan, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can remember we talked about it on this podcast, but now they've rolled it out globally, which means anyone from anywhere in the world can now just pay $8 and use ChatGPT. You know, they call it ChatGPT what? ChatGPT Go, right?
Yeah.
And
Go
then
tier
this
and
is
go
like,
and free. There is a free tier
yeah,
too. Yeah.
the Go. So it's not free; it's $8. It's an $8 plan.
No, no, no. They have free, then Go, then Plus, Pro, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they have free Go Plus, and then I think the other one.
You know,
So
I'm
what?
okay with this. I'm not. So let me prefix that with something. I'm saying so their sort of analysis is that the people are getting used to free AI, and there is obviously processing power data set. I mean, we get the cost involved of running the systems, so
Yeah,
they have to make money somewhere.
yeah,
What makes me more concerned is, and we talked about this in the past, there is a fundamental difference between how we Google search and how we use AI. I think we
yeah,
share much deeper knowledge, secrets, and personal things with Chat GPT type tools versus hey, find me a restaurant in Google search. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say is that ChatGPT has more details, more data about you than Google
yeah,
does. Because I,
yeah,
I mean, I spend like 5 6 hours every day chatting about
yeah,
business, this and that. It knows so much stuff about me, right? So
yeah,
my big concern is obviously if they unlock this data, I mean, all advertisers going to come in because they can fine tune and target specific characteristic that Google probably doesn't even have that kind of data details, right?
yeah,
So but they've been saying that they will not index your ad, so ads will not be based on the responses but based on the questions. But the
yeah,
thing that I'm worried about is how long that will last, because companies going to be more interested in what answers and how I'm using those answers, because that will help companies target more ads.
yeah. I mean,
So
lock ads. I don't know. That might be a big blow for Google, though. I mean, Google ads and
no, the Google's play here is that how fast we can get Gemini to be default here,
yeah,
right? How, I mean, I know lots of people move to Gemini for a bunch of day-to-day stuff. I haven't, but
yeah.
reason I haven't is that because there's so much context I've built around ChatGPT, it's just gonna be pain for me to move that around.
So you feel locked in.
I'm kind of locked in.
That's
I'm not gonna
interesting.
lie, dude. I'm happy. I mean, I think
Oh,
after a couple of system prompts that I've set in, I'm pretty happy with the type of responses and results I get. I'm a happy user. Um,
hmm.
it's very, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, ChatGPT should be OpenAI should be making more money, and it's very weird to see that they're sort of struggling.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess it's
I
more
think
usage
focus
and
issue.
then
They're all over the place. I think this is a focus issue.
yeah, yeah. I
Healthcare, right?
agree
There
with
was
you.
a healthcare release for ChatGPT, wasn't it? ChatGPT Health or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. ChatGPT
Yeah,
Health or something, and
they're in finance. They want to do this app store of SDK. I'm like,
they're
dude,
everywhere.
you cannot. I mean, Google had the same problem when Google started doing 100 different apps and they started killing it. You got to focus. I
Yeah,
mean, look at Anthropic, right? Cloud code, and they're slowly branching out.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess they're going to struggle a bit, but they will get there. Hopefully, I mean they're a big company already. They're a big company. They have usage, and then I guess what they're just chasing is profitability. I even think they're chasing it too early. because if they can keep their usage up in the next 4, 5, 6 years, they are definitely going to get profitable. But then
No. I
maybe
think
they don't have that.
no. Ads going to give them lots of money because user base is amazing. What we
Yeah,
talk
user
about?
base is amazing.
They have daily active users a million, like 800 million total. I know there's crazy numbers. Um, I think, yeah, I mean, they're going to make money. The question is that the long-term right strategy? Um,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, there is another interesting news that came out of this, which is, and I hope this is wrong. Their CFO came out and said now that they might charge OpenAI might charge royalties based on AI discoveries. So let's say, like, so for Agent Link, right? I do lots of brainstorming with OpenAI.
yeah,
So I get lots of insightful answers, obviously, and some of those answers make it to the product decisions, right?
yeah.
So imagine OpenAI coming in and saying, "I need a cut on Agent Link because ChatGPT helped you to build this."
That is crazy. I don't think that's ever
No,
going to.
that's what CFO said, that they might try to do that.
I don't
That
think
there
they're
is
ever going to do that, because I mean, how do you even know if? I mean, I don't
don't
think
say
that's
that.
going to happen.
How would they know? Even though
I
they're
don't think
saying
that
they don't have they have all the data, man.
they have all the data, but how are they going to now? What I implemented was from ChatGPT. Could have come from Gemini. Could have come from anywhere. I mean, and besides,
Let's say they figured it
can we talk
out.
about how they?
Even if they figured it out, that sounds crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
So it's
very
almost
crazy, though. I don't know
it's
why.
almost like Apple is asking me, hey, you use your Mac machine to build agentic software. Now I need a
Yeah,
percentage of your company.
you need percentage
Like,
of that. Like that.
yeah.
That's crazy. It's not going to happen. I mean,
Um,
how are we even sure? I was watching a podcast the other day, and then this guy answers question first, and then lets AI answer it second, right? He wrote a book on, I think it was on money, right? He wrote a book on money. So you ask him, oh, what's the easiest way to make money in the AI age? He will give you an answer, and then you ask the same question to ChatGPT. ChatGPT gives you the same answer. So in that case, let's say I take what ChatGPT gives me and run. How is it really an original idea of
no,
ChatGPT? I
no,
feel like
it's going to be impossible for them to prove it out because the question becomes is, wait a minute, you use the whole internet data to train your model. Have you
yeah,
paid
and now you are
anybody for that
charging.
money? Have you paid
Yeah,
anybody for that data? Now you're in turn asking us to pay you. It's just double standard. Anyway,
yeah,
I feel like there will be tremendous pressure. I mean, I'm assuming, I'm sure there's tremendous pressure on the company about the amount of money there is, the amount of money they're losing every year to kind of get to profits.
yeah,
Um, and I was wondering about this too. I think $20 is very less. I don't know why AI companies charge so less. I mean, they're good, they charge less. Um, so I think that's another transition we're probably going to see in the products. They're going to start to charge more. Like
but you
I
know,
had to move to Max in Claude, right? I mean, it's $100 and there is 200 plan. We're going to see later this year lots of this product going to increasing their price because
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
not making money. They're too expensive to run some of these models. So,
Yeah.
all
I,
right.
I
So I
guess
was thinking
I'm
of.
also. I mean, this ties back to Agent Link, right? And we were talking about it on the call the other day. You were talking
Yeah,
about it on the call. How to
yeah,
figure out pricing and all those things. So
yeah,
the SaaS model was subscription. You just subscribe and use. After a month, you subscribe again, right?
yeah,
And then
yeah, yeah,
AI models came up with the
yeah,
tokenized pricing, right?
yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
their usage model makes sense. I mean, I think it. See that they have teams working on this. I'm not going to be some guy coming with an insight that OpenAI haven't thought through. That's not going to happen. I'm sure there is a solid reasoning behind it. Obviously, it makes sense to create Go tier for emerging countries, right? I mean,
Yeah,
$20, $100 is too much for India, for Africa, for Kenya, right? So they have
yeah,
to have a different pricing. But that doesn't necessarily translate to how much it costs to compute, right?
yeah,
That's complete cost is the same. Um, so you gotta figure it out to balance it somehow. So yeah.
yeah.
So I was thinking of going. There are a bunch of interesting stories. We can cover them next week. The one I will share a short one, and then we'll drive to main story because the timing of that story is important. Ralph made a huge round this week. Actually, I heard about this tool 2 weeks back. Now there is a tremendous energy and excitement about folks building while you asleep. I mean, this is something about software developers. So I'm going to go to bed and my code agent going to build the software for me, and I'll wake up in the morning and the software is ready. So Ralph is
Wow.
yeah, there is a tremendous. I don't do that, but there's lots of interest in that. So Ralph is an interesting sort of script tool, Bash script essentially. Started as a Bash script. What it does is it encourages. This is something Harry was talking about last year. You know how you do spec-driven development. You create a
Yeah.
plan, create a
Yeah.
bunch of stories, create a bunch of sort of acceptance criteria and whatnot, and you have
Yeah.
this giant document, right, with hundreds of issues and whatnot. Then you fit this document to Claude, let's say. Okay, the
Yeah.
problem with just purely using Claude like this is that Claude will run a couple of things and it will wait for your prompt. Okay, I'm done with phase one. Do you want to continue phase two?
Yeah.
Right. So what this guy has done with the Bash script is made it made it such a way that Claude runs in a loop.
Okay.
So Claude has hooks that you can tie to. There is a hook called stop. That hook gets called every time Claude is sort of done with your work. So that fundamental level, what Ralph does is that it hooks into that script, looks at your to-do list and say, hey, is there anything pending? If there's a pending, it will feed in Claude again to run. So imagine Claude
Oh,
running for overnight through one after another your issue while you sleep.
wow.
Yeah, so that's makes everybody super excited about this. Obviously, not to mention this is going to burn through lots of tokens. So make sure you
Yeah.
have enough doing this back and forth. But yeah, so you give a plan or PRD with list of issues in that, and use Ralph script, and Claude will just go through it over and over again. And you
Wow.
wake up in the morning and you have your software running. At least
That's
that's the
super
promise. That's the promise.
That's the promise. We don't know yet if he's doing December, if he's doing
So
phase already.
that brings in to our main story that we want to talk about. If Claude is
Yep.
writing all the code, then what the engineer going to do,
Mm.
right?
Super
So
interesting.
right, so
Engineer
back
will be
in days,
jobless.
no. That's I'm not saying that. Precious said that. That's not true. Um, our roles will change. So so back in days, code was what we produced, right? I mean, the definition of engineer was, I'm going to give you work, you're going to come in, work on bunch of stuff, produce a bunch of code. That's sort of your asset. That's the artifact, right? Designer design things, we write code. But as code is becoming cheap, what is becoming more important, right? That's what we need to be thinking about, because building anyone can build software necessarily doesn't mean that we are getting filled with high quality products. Building high quality software products is still hard, right? I can build a software and it's going to kind of run, but it might have lots of bugs, right? So one of the things that we have to start thinking through is there will be sort of two categories that we're going to look at. So one thing we all going to agree on is that code is not the asset anymore. We're not going to be worrying about that anymore. This is something that Claude or any coding agent is going to come and produce, and we're going to take that artifact. And I was telling you that too, right? I mean, I shared with you in private, and I'm going to share this right now. I'm going to make a post about this. I don't look at the code anymore, which makes me sometimes very uncomfortable because I like to. I was really good at thinking about design and how to craft this, how to craft that. I don't look at the code anymore. I moved up the layer a little bit. So that layer is becoming more important. So what's becoming more important? The system truth, the specification. What will ensure that your software actually works? That is becoming more important. So, and we mentioned this, I think, in previous episodes also. You know, GitHub is all about code, right? If code is not the asset, does GitHub make sense anymore? right? Because if I can somehow have my source of truth, specification contracts, and test cases, right? Evaluators, all that somewhere checked in, and delete my code, my project. Theory is I can use the same set of specs, contract, and executable to generate them, but because generating code is cheaper. That makes sense what I'm saying? Are you following me? Precious, you there?
Yeah, I went off. I just came back.
Okay, okay, cool. So what I'm
Yeah.
there's just two things happening here. The code is not an asset, but what turns out to be an sort of an interesting. If that's true, then GitHub sort of doesn't make sense anymore because GitHub is all about saving code files, right? So what I'm
Yeah.
saying is that the abstraction has gone up a little bit. What gone up is that the things that we use to produce the code is becoming more important. So
Oh,
if I can save my contracts executable tests. So there was a good post about this. We covered this, right? Some guy vibe coded and built entire HTML parser. Okay. He
okay.
first did it in Python, then he did it in Rust or something. Okay. And it was able to pass in all the specification. Parsing HTML is not trivial. Okay. It's very complicated because it has lots of sequences, lots of stuff that is acceptable by browser, but is truly not valid. I mean, it's a really, really good exercise to build something. The reason he was able to do that because HTML over the years, HTML specs are all encoded in executable test files. There is a clear specifications. So all this guy did is that take the specification, which is the real asset now, feed it to Claude and say produce. And the reason
Wow.
it worked because Claude can produce code and go back and check whether the spec failing. If the spec is failing, it go back and fix it. So just
Oh,
having, I think the spec was like thousands of tests or 2,000 tests. So end of the process, when all the 2,000 tests pass, he knew I have an HTML parser that works. I don't even have to look at the code. I know it works.
wow,
So that is what's sort of becoming important.
wow.
So moving to
That's
left, I mean, that's what I do too in the process, right? I spend way too much time, and you talked about this, right? And Claude encouraged spend way too much right time in planning, specs. It's the software 2.0 is all about verification. If you can verify, you can build. So that's all sort of becoming norm now. And I think lots of programmers and engineers sort of catching up to this. And there will always going to be world of disposable software, right? The disposable software is that you using Claude to build something, you vibe code, use Lovable or V0 to quickly spawn out an app, execute it and crash it, delete it, right? You don't need that
hmm,
anymore. For any software that's long living, your product or like Agent like Julian, we're going to be more focused on contract specifications. So that is going to be on the GitHub repo, not the code anymore.
okay. I mean, it's interesting also, and I mean, it's been almost like what we always talk about here, how you know code is going left, and then how we have to like sort of plan,
Which is,
the whole planning,
yeah,
sitting
though
down
that,
to like engineer what you want to do.
and Chad Fowler also did a post. Maybe I should link that blog. I'll link that blog. I mean, he sort of echoed this too. I mean, we
Yeah,
in agile software development is all about working software, right? We were, I
yeah,
mean, some of us were really crazy about quality of the code and refactoring or whatnot, which is
yeah.
at that point makes
Refactoring.
sense. Yeah, refactoring code quality. I was very strict when I lead team. I mean, I would do code review if the code doesn't match my. I was very I'm passionate about this stuff. But
Yeah,
fundamentally, what we want always at the end day, but we always wanted that working software. Is it solving your problem? Am I making the world better place, right? So that hasn't changed. In fact, what is Claude and all coding agents are doing is making that more important now.
wow.
What
Yeah,
problem I'm solving. See, if you notice me, I focus more time on that, which is the right thing to do versus, oh, how should I design this software? How should I write this code? That's sort of becoming, okay, Claude can do it for me. I don't care.
yeah. All right. So I think that's a very interesting one, though, and I think it's also an interesting place sort of like call it a day today, unless if you
Yeah.
have any other thing you want to say,
No, I mean,
right?
this evolves into, we should follow up maybe next week to talk about what it that means for junior software developers, right? I mean, I feel like
Yeah,
that's the categories are getting hurt most.
yeah,
But my message for them is should be is, yeah, focus on move left, focus on sort of
building.
domain expertise, focus on domain expertise. What problem you're solving? How can we verify the software? Those things are becoming very, very important.
Yeah, yeah. What problem are you solving? I mean, I think I asked that answers the question I asked earlier. So, if it's still important to learn how to code in 2020, in 2026, right? So, just like Nilanjan said, focus on domain expertise and then look for problems to solve. I think maybe next week we may chat a little bit about it. We talked about it some time ago. For example, me myself, I've been trying to like build a very simple app using anti-gravity, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I could prompt it and it will build the app for me. But then now when I want to take it up a little bit, I need to like set up some things. I need to do some things with MCPs. I need to know how to do some things, right? And I don't want to read documentation because this is 2026. I mean, if it was 2015, 2016, I would have gone to read documentations, right? But now I don't want to read documentation. And I don't think ChatGPT is so fluent in directing me, telling me how to do what to do, and then how to use anti-gravity. So I may have to switch to Gemini, and then Gemini will have to teach me how to do some setup. I may have to use connect some other tools used by Google, produced by Google, and some other things. So this setup, I think, especially for junior developers, focus on some of these things like, oh, okay, how do I use anti-gravity to build this level of application? How do I use Cloud Code to build this level of application? you know so by the time you build those things, I think
Yeah.
that's where the work is going to, and that's where
And then, yeah, verify. I mean,
it is. Yeah,
verification is sort of important. How do you know that it actually works? That's more important. If you don't
yeah,
know, then you'll not be able to build, which
yeah,
always has been true. But some of us sort of ignored that and focus more on the coding exercise. I just want to build, but that's changing.
yeah.
All right,
All
cool.
right, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
thanks,
much,
man. Take
everyone.
care. Have
Yeah,
a nice weekend.
right.
Take care. Goodbye.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too. Bye.